Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, wherever you are, as Jim Carrey would say in The Truman Show. Today, episode 223, I'm going to be talking about my favourite films of all time. I'm going to give you a ranking. I put it up to Twitter. I said, because obviously Twitter is a bastion of truth and impartiality. I said, would you prefer me to talk about my favourite films, or do you want more music? And every vote, although there are only four, were for me talking about my favourite films. So I'm going to do that today instead. As you can probably guess by my t-shirt, one of the films might be, just might be, The Thing. But I'm going to talk about actually my top 13 because I tried to get it down to 10. It didn't quite work. I'm going to give you a quick sneak preview of what some of these films are going to be. Some of those are going to be quite surprising choices, I think. Although, of course, you'll just have to wait until further in to find out where in the ranking some of these unusual titles come from. So, without any further ado, although, of course, there is going to be a little teeny weeny bit of further ado, I'm going to talk through my favourite movies of all time. Now, I've got a top 10. That top 10 can change any given day. It can change from one to another very, very easily. And I've got probably about 50 other films that kind of just hover around, and they're always in there, and they never ever change. Films that I love, comfort films, films that, you know, when they come on television, you go, oh, I'm going to have to watch the end of this. Even if you're just about to go to bed, and you go, I'm going to watch this. So what I've chosen, I've tried to get it down to 13 films. I've got 3 honourable mentions, always perpetual kind of really important movies to me, and then 10 which are definitively actually accurately ranked. So let's get into it. So number 13 on my list of favourite films, observant of you will already noticed, the 1980 Disney movie, which has fallen into relative obscurity these days, but if you saw it, you don't forget it. The Black Hole. This is and you will see a theme running through a lot of these films actually, which I'll talk about. This is a really interesting, dark children's film, but it's not really a children's film. It's a gothic horror in space around compulsion and obsession, and how that can push out all the other parts of your life and all the other things that you're thinking about to where you don't actually see anything else. Of course, there's an element of a journey of discovery. There's cute flying robots. There's Maximilian, the most evil robot of all time. And there is a dark, dark ending. I mean, really, what Disney were trying to do with this was they were trying to create some kind of cross between Star Wars and 2001. The ending is so dark. There's no way. I mean, really, the ending alone, this should be an 18, not a PG. But the rest of it is just bizarre and strange and so unusual. It's got an amazing score by John Barry. It's got fantastic kind of end of the world kind of, you know, architecture. It's like a gothic horror set in space. This is the annual from 1981, which has the unofficial graphic novel sequelization to what happens at the end of the film, which, by the way, is complete bullshit, because there's no way that you can get a rescue ship, stuck it into a black hole, and somehow come out the other end and survive. Absolutely absurd. But no, the Black Hole, the Disney movie from 1980, is so strange and so dark, and I there's none of the characters in it, by the way, that I'm particularly drawn to, but the themes of it about being at the edge of humanity, being at the edge of knowledge and exploration, being pushed to go further and further and further and go, there's more things that I need to know. It's really something which, I mean, some of the themes in that I really connect with, and what you will see in all of my choices is some underlying themes which are really important to me, that go all the way through the film. So number 13, and 13 for a reason, or 12B if you're suspicious or superstitious, is The Black Hole. Number 12 on my list, again actually I think from 1980, this is David Lynch's The Elephant Man. Now, if you haven't seen this film, it is heartbreaking and brilliant. Now, David Bowie played the Elephant Man on stage around about the time this came out. John Hurt is the film version of the Elephant Man, and he's phenomenally good in this. But the themes that are in this film, and this thing that I'm really drawn to, is after Eraserhead, the first David Lynch movie. David Lynch is one of the top 10 filmmakers of all time. I will arm wrestle any of you, and I will win like Sylvester Stallone at the end of it, over the top, if you want to disagree with me on this. But this film has so much heart and so much soul. And it's about, obviously it's about I think his name is John Merrick, and John Merrick was born by a rare disease. He was deformed at birth, and so was regarded as a freak amongst the people that he lived around, and so spent a lot of his life as almost a medical curiosity. You know, the belief that how could this person be alive? How could they eat? How could they talk? And yet within all of that and all of the things which lie through at him, you know, there was an individual with dignity and passion and intelligence, who was erudite and somehow walked a path through life. To quote the Manics' fantastic song From Despair to Where, I tried to walk in a straight line, an imitation of dignity. And for me, The Elephant Man is a really important film about, and it's one which I've identified with, not because obviously I'm not horrendously deformed, despite what my eyes or my hair might make you think. But it's a film around, you know, when life throws things at you that you haven't asked for, and you suddenly find that you have to live with factors outside of your control. You have to adapt to them, and yet somehow, like a bird on a wire, like a drunk in a midnight choir, you try in your way to be free. And it's a really great film about human integrity and identity, and that search for, well, who am I? What am I? How am I going to live? What do I believe in? And to try and do so in a way that is, you know, dignified, and that you can morally reconcile with who you are. Number 11. Yep. Okay, so the star of this one is problematic, but the film itself, I really love this film. It's a ghost story, and it's just a really strange, powerful film about the passing of time and the eternity of memories, and how, you know, true love never dies, and how love is you know, the greatest painkiller of all. It's so not dreamy is not the word. Dreamy is the word that you use for Ryan Gosling when he's dressed as Ken in the Barbie movie. But it's so it's got such an amazing quality to it, around, you know, an alternative version of reality that's very, very close to our own. Really great film. Got a lot to say for it. A lot of love for it in my household. So we're into the top 10. What are the top 10 films of all time going to be? By the way, should point out, only one film per director. No James Bond films. No Star Wars films. In fact, I don't think there's any franchise movies in here. Although a couple of them kind of got turned into franchises very much later on. Number 10. This is really a really underrated film, actually. Stranger Than Fiction, which kind of disappeared at the time. It's a riff on some of the ideas that you've got in The Truman Show, and you know, some of the other movies around about the same time. But this one is around the character who finds that somehow he is a character in a novel, and that there is a preset destiny for him that has been decided by the narrator, and the narrator being an author. And so the idea being is that there's a central kind of concept around this film is around, you know, is life a single linear path that is set for you, that is unalterable? Do you have the ability to change and shape your reality, to make decisions for yourself, or are there certain key things that are just going to happen? Like, for example, if you play a video game, it doesn't matter what you do, at some point certain things are going to happen. You're going to have to fight the big boss, or jump over the canyon, or, you know, whatever it is, die trying to collect a thing on a platformer, who knows? But, you know, for Stranger Than Fiction, the idea is that he understands that there are things that are unalterable about his future, that somebody else has made a decision about, and he's going to try and intervene and change the future that he has and the reality that he has, and to exercise his own degree of control and autonomy and identity. And you can see, obviously, you know, this is a theme which also runs through The Elephant Man, which is around when life sets you a certain set of circumstances, is, do you try and influence that set of circumstances? How do you try to mold reality to your own vision and your own will? And it's just a very sweet, lovely film. It's got a wonderful story in it. It makes me happy watching it, and I just really like it. Now, the box art and everything that goes with it, makes it out that it's a comedy. I don't really think of it as a comedy. It's quite sweet, it's quite light, but at the same point, it's grasping with some really heavy, dark things. Number 9 then is one of the most recent ones on my list. It came out just before lockdown. I think I saw this at the cinema in 2019. It is Ari Aster's Midsommar. This is one of the best films of all time. I absolutely adore it. I think I've talked about it in the horror movie episode. And for me, this is a film about being consumed by grief and how you respond to that. And people don't talk about grief, and grief is the pain that happens when you lose something that you love, and that you're not crying for them, you're crying for you, and how it affects you, and the importance that thing happens. And Midsommar is about somebody that experiences grief in a very unique and unusual way, how they process that, how they deal with that, and how that then influences their decisions. And even though there's a metaphor, or there's a a whole bunch of stuff that happens in the movie, which if you've seen it, great, and if you haven't, please do watch it. But it's a film about how people that are emotional, that are grieving, can be influenced, can be changed and altered and seduced by things that aren't real. And it's such a bizarre and unusual movie. I just absolutely, I mean, I came out of it and I was like, oh my God, what an incredible film this is. And there's that line, grief is a thing with feathers. It's not strictly true, but certainly, I've lost loves, grieve deeply, and my reactions to those moments when those things happened, I understand I had some wonky logic in my head because I was being emotional without understanding what was pressing the buttons that were making me do the things. And Midsommar is a film that, for me at least, is very much around how somebody processes and deals with enormous, catastrophic loss, and how they then start to unravel as a result of that. Number, I think it's 8 now. 8, yes, number 8. I find it difficult if I've miscounted the number of boxes, isn't it? And then I get to 2 number 1s. Number 8 is Harvey. I think this is the oldest film that I've got in my list. This is James Stewart, who has a best friend, a constant companion, who is a 6 foot tall rabbit called Harvey that only he can see. And it's a manifestation of something he calls, I think it's a puka. Now, Harvey is a beautiful film. It's strange, it's tragic, it has some really interesting concepts at play in it about being accepted by society for who you are, because the version of reality that all of us experience only exists in our minds. It may not be true. And when you've got people who are friends or lovers or whoever, normally there's a thing called consensus reality. It's a version of reality that most people agree most of it is mostly the same. But for example, if you're colorblind, the thing that is orange you may see as grey, but it is orange, so you call it orange, even though to you it isn't orange, it's grey, for example. And Harvey is a film about perception, and it's about tolerance. I mean, certainly you think about the current political environment that we have, this so-called war on woke, by certain things. Now, I don't want to get too deep into that because that's close to politics, but there is a degree of intolerance around other people's viewpoints and accepting that. There's also a thing called the tolerance paradox, by the way, where you have a situation where you have to tolerate, or more correctly, you do tolerate everything apart from that which threatens your own existence. Now, there's definitions around what that might be, but the tolerance paradox is a really interesting philosophical concept. But in Harvey, for example, we just have a guy who's just a little bit different from everybody else, and he doesn't harm anybody or hurt anybody, but to him, his reality is his reality, and yet somehow he has to experience a whole bunch of consequences as a result of his reality not coinciding with the consensus that exists around him. So again, the themes that I have that are also in Stranger Than Fiction and in The Elephant Man around being forced to fit into a box which you don't fit in by a society that may not necessarily tolerate difference and diversity. Yeah, I'm a liberal. I hug trees in my spare time. Number eight then is this is again one of the older ones. But I absolutely adore this. This is 1974, the film that Francis Coppola made after The Godfather. What a film that doesn't get enough love or attention really. The Conversation. This is a fascinating film about a surveillance operative who plants bugs in people's houses and listens to other people's conversations, and he overhears a certain thing that happens, and his life is threatened and compromised by that. But it's around paranoia, perception, reality, around what happens when the version of reality that you think you live in is perhaps not the one that everybody else lives in. Now, I went through a very, very traumatic experience once with an employer who I am legally not allowed to name, who I think may have been uh, watching my out of work activity, which, by the way, nothing exciting or controversial in that, by the way, in terms of what I was doing outside of work. What I was doing, I was going to gigs, I was having a drink. Wow, incredible. But then you start to think, hang on, am I being paranoid, or am I the person that really knows what's going on? And I have a degree of PTSD about that, I'm pretty sure, because what I did is I had to then suddenly go, right, so the assumptions about the reality that I live in, that I have trusted to be accurate and fair, suddenly unravel dramatically. And then I didn't trust the people that I worked with. I didn't trust the world that I lived in. I didn't trust the thing where I was walking down the street. I was kind of convinced that somebody was covertly paying attention to my activities to try and get evidence upon, or to find out what I was doing, because they perceived me to be a threat in some way. And The Conversation is a film that explores a very, very similar fear. And of course, one of the greatest horrors is that where you can't trust your fellow man, where you can't trust the world that you live in, you can't trust the things that you take for granted, you can't trust the narrative that follows in a world at all. And it's a horror film, absolutely one of the most horrifying horror films I've ever seen. But at the same point, it's a film that I think is absolutely really underrated in the Francis Ford Coppola canon of work. He did Godfather 1 before it, Godfather 2 after. Is just a fabulous film for all the paranoids out there in the audience. Now, I've forgotten what number I'm at. I'm guessing I'm at 6, maybe. Yep. Okay. So I'm at 6. So number 6. This is I think the most recent one that's on my list. This is The Lobster with Colin Farrell, and this is I think a really dark, fascinating movie about societal pressure. So in The Lobster, you are, if you've been single for a period of time, you have to find love, and single people are arrested and are transferred to the hotel, and then they have to find a matching mate within 45 days. And if they fail, they are transformed into an animal of their choosing and released into the woods. And it's a film about how society tries to force you into a box you may not necessarily fit in. I guess you're starting to see a common theme in a lot of films that I'm talking about, and there's still a little bit more to go. But it's a dark, funny, bleak movie. And you think about it, if, some people I know, they met their partner when they were 17 and they've been with them for 35 years. And it's absolutely wonderful, But at the same point, other people I know, they met their partner at 44, and through no fault of their own, they've done nothing wrong. They just haven't met quite the right person. And some people just aren't built for relationships. They're terrible, no good, very bad at them indeed. And yet society puts pressure upon us to conform to certain things. So, the dog, 2.4 children, the car in the drive, having the children, all those type of things, and we're penalised for not fitting into that box. Penalised financially because you need to live somewhere, and if you can't afford to live, and by the way, if you're on an average salary in the UK, you can't afford to rent a property on your own. You have to live with another human being. So therefore, you're automatically shackled into a relationship with somebody, even if it's people that you're not in a romantic relationship with. And at the same point, if you've got two incomes, then financially the system is geared towards double incomes being more prosperous, having more spare money, because of course you don't need to pay for two houses, you don't need to pay two sets of water bills, two sets of tax bills, two sets of all that. You can share it. And so being single is a punishment financially. We are penalised by society and the structure of society for not finding another human being that we can cohabit with. And the Lobster really just takes that metaphor and explodes it to its ultimate conclusion. It is a dark, strange, perverse movie. I absolutely love it, and it's about the pressure that society places upon human beings to turn them into people that they aren't. Because some people, why should we be? Why should society force us to be anybody that we're not? We should be who we are. We know who we are, and that really should be the end of it. Okay, top 5 time, boys and girls. Or boys, girls, and anybody else that's watching. This is, I think, one of the more recent films. It's certainly the only film in the top 6 which has been made, or the top 5 which has been made this millennia. It is The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky. This is a powerful, compelling, dark movie. It's not fun. There are no laughs in The Fountain. But my God, what a film it is. Darren Aronofsky writes and makes films which generally tend to touch upon the subject matters of obsession and compulsion. So things like Black Swan, for example, Requiem for a Dream, and I think it's Mother as well. These are not fun movies, but they're important movies. And The Fountain is about a man that loves eternally and tries to conquer time and death by trying to find the tree of life. And to solve and cure disease and time itself. It has an amazing soundtrack by Mogwai and Clint Mansell, which is here. Don't try and find it on vinyl; it's ridiculously expensive. And it is compelling and dark and beautiful. And it's the same kind of film that you can watch it once every 5 years and go, that is an incredible movie. And at the same point, you watch it every 5 years and you go, I never want to see it again. It is apparently an epic science fiction tale which comes in at a dramatic 92 minutes. But the epic part of it is the concepts and the themes that it deals with. So Hugh Jackman stars as Tom Creo. You can tell I'm reading that off the box. A man torn between 3 parallel lives, faced with the ultimate struggle to save the life of the one that he loves. And it merges science fiction and fantasy and time travel and imagery and nature and everything, and it's totally bloody bonkers. It's a work of art. It shouldn't be shown in cinemas, it should be shown in art museums. Number 4 then on my list, and of course this is the more predictable stuff. If you went, oh man, what's a guy in his 40s and 50s, what would be one of his favourite movies? Well, it'd probably be a Stanley Kubrick movie, wouldn't it? And of course you're absolutely correct. Number 4 is The Shining, and I'm going to choose the American cut of the film, which is longer. I think it's 24 minutes longer. It was first shown in the UK by mistake on ITV Central in a midnight showing in 1993. I didn't record it, I just stayed up and watched it, and I'm like, what are all these scenes that I've never seen before? I really wished I'd recorded that version of the film, but of course I didn't. It took me another 7 or 8 years to find a Region 1 DVD and import it. But no, The Shining is to me, it's a film about, there's a divorce allegory in it. There's obviously the element of divorce and the breaking up of the relationship, and there's grief that goes alongside that, because obviously your hopes and your dreams and your ideas about a shared future. But also, there's a really telling thing about commitment in it. Now, one of the key kind of integral points of the film is where Jack Torrance is on the stairs talking to Wendy, and he's talking about, I made a commitment, I made a vow, I said I would fulfill these this contract, I would do what I have said to people I would do, and I will fill that through. And it's around, sometimes when you make a commitment, whatever that commitment is, it could be a work contract, it could be a marriage, it could be, whatever it is, it's like you're committed there. You've said you're going to do it. So it's about the power and chains of commitment and how that can tear people apart. Obviously, it's also about ghosts. It's scary as heck. It's got an amazing soundtrack, by the way, by Wendy Carlos. And for all you people that are bothered about trans rights, look, if you call her Wendy Carlos and not Walter Carlos, or if you call Darth Vader and not Anakin Skywalker, you're totally okay with people changing their names and their identities as they go along. By the way, you know, it's not that hard when people start talking about Darth Vader. Why should it be hard when it's talking about anybody else? I don't know. But no, The Shining is one of my very, very favourite films. It is obviously it's a film about compulsion, obsession, commitment, creativity, and about divorce, and it covers a lot of things which are and you know, the death of love and grief and everything that goes with it. So I absolutely love that film. I think I spent 40 minutes talking about it on a previous episode. You go back and visit that if that's what you want to know more about The Shining. Number 3. Ah, man, every man, and of course it's men, isn't it? Normal, innocent men. And of course, this is a very man film that I'm about to talk about here. Oh, I forgot to show you this. The novelisation of The Black Hole by Alan Dean Foster, a man who has written millions of words that have been read by film geeks the world over. So this one, number 3, is not a surprise to many people. Blade Runner. Pretty much de rigueur. You have to like it if you were born between about 1971 and now. Now, for me, Blade Runner, by the way, this is the novelisation that sold for £1.75 originally, but this version was printed later, so it was more expensive. Blade Runner, that we're going to go for the final cut version of the film here from 2007, which comes in a 3-disc Blu-ray pack with a spinner, or you can get a 5-disc now rusty DVD box set version of Blade Runner. But to me, what this film grapples with, I think, some of the key concepts around being human is, you know, who am I? How long have I got? Who do I love? What's my identity? How do I feel about things? What am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Am I going to follow the orders which I'm given, or am I going to follow my conscience? Where am I going with this? So that is the film. Obviously, it helps. It's got an awesomely cool Vangelis soundtrack. Obviously, it also helps that it's cool and dark and science fictiony, and it's got you know, Harrison Ford, king of science fiction, in it, and all that stuff. But no, it actually none of that counts for shit in the big scheme of things if the film doesn't actually count as being any good. And so that, you know, the things that the film grapples with are the concepts around: do I follow my programming? Do I do what I'm told, or do I do what I feel is right? Do I follow, you know, the ethics, or do I follow my heart, or do I follow my orders? It's a really interesting film. And by the way, Blade Runner was inspired by a quote that Philip K. Dick read from the novel, from the autobiography of somebody that worked at a concentration camp. There was a line: "The screaming of children at night keeps me awake." Was just a casual line that was written in an unpublished autobiography of somebody that worked in one of the concentration camps in the Second World War. And that made Philip K. Dick think about, what is it to be human? What is it to be, are these people monsters, or are they not even people? What are they? These are all the kind of factors which go into it. So Blade Runner for me is a film about, you know, identity. It's a film about who we are, what do we do, what do we stand for, what ideals do we have? You know, do we follow orders, or do we follow our consciences? Really big questions. And of course, it helps that it's cool as shit. So it, of course, isn't going to mind. But of course, if that wasn't there, it'd just be a film with lots of empty whiz bangs and really classic special effects. And you know, you watch a film, and what is it? What is the thing that makes somebody go back to a film and rewatch a film? It's not how good the special effects are. It's not how good the music is. It's about the story. Because without the story, you have nothing. Sound and fury signifying nothing. But there you are. Blade Runner is a great film, although I suspect you've probably already seen it, actually, come to think of it. So number 2, this will not be a surprise to you at all. By the way, I have a question about Blade Runner, which is, I have the soundtrack CD, and it looks like somebody's autographed the back tray, but I don't know who it is. So if you recognise this autograph, do tell me. If it's Vangelis, of course, he's dead now, so I would like to know. I have no idea. Number 2, my second favourite film of all time. I have talked about this film before. You already know what the film is because you can see my T-shirt. It is 1982, the summer of 1982. It is John Carpenter's The Thing. The film that I have more disc versions than any other movie. I have 4 or 5 versions of this on disc release, and this is The Thing. This is includes the 2011 prequel. The Thing here is the Arrow version. Here is the German Turbine Factory version. This version here, the Turbine Factory version, which plays on Region 2 Blu-ray players, by the way, and is about £29 if you want to buy it on eBay. Features all the extras from the American Scream Factory edition. This is all new extras. So if you want to watch the 1982 television version of the film, if you want to watch all the documentary footage that's on the American version, this is the one to go for, the Turbine Factory edition. Of course, it's in German. The menu's in German, but nothing good comes easy. But no, The Thing is, and I saw this at the cinema recently, is a compelling movie about the nature of identity. And as I kind of said in a previous episode about films that I absolutely love, and this is the reason why The Thing is a film that sticks with me. It's not just cool, it's not just guys in the snow, you know, it's a haunted house movie set on an Arctic base. And not only that, the nature of the beast, the nature of the thing itself is the thing that makes the film amazing. It's a shape-shifting alien that can take the physical form of anything that it attacks. And to me, I can see a real allegory there, a metaphor between that and maybe, you know, surrounded by humans that are monsters. Now, I've worked with people that are psychopaths. I've met people that are completely remorseless and that treat other human beings as objects to be controlled, manipulated and abused for their own advantage. And that those people don't care about you. They only care about fooling you long enough for you to be a useful idiot to do what they want you to do, because they're scared of you having your autonomy and making your own decisions and you not being able to be controlled by them. And so that is why, for me at least, because I have worked with at least one person that is an utterly remorseless psychopath, and I have very possibly been in a relationship with a couple of people that, as it turned out, were utterly remorseless in the way in which they treated people around them. You know, as if other human beings were no more than crisp packets to be discarded and thrown away when they served no further use. These people were really fucking dangerous. And I mean, in any relationship, of course, the closer you get to somebody, the more you see. And then, and with a relationship, it's a continual, renewed decision, in my opinion, is that when you see somebody and you then think, okay, maybe I don't like this person, I don't trust this person will treat me and misuse me. And it's really difficult to be in that environment. And The Thing is a film that speaks to me greatly about other human beings and the fact that they can be monsters, you know. And there's that cliche is that, you know, I have met the monsters and it wears a human face, and I know where those people are and how they think, and or at least some of them, and I'm pretty good at working out and detecting them now. But The Thing for me is a film that works on that level, is about other human beings as being indetectable monsters that can wreak havoc and destruction upon your life. And again, that ties in with the themes that we've got in Blade Runner, in The Lobster, in Stranger Than Fiction, in The Black Hole. It's about identity and control, and it's about who you are forced to be by circumstances around you as opposed to who you actually want to be. The Thing. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, please do watch it. Of course, if you haven't seen it, where the hell have you been the past 40 years? But of course, probably listening to 5 Elephants. Now, my number one choice, this one, I think only one of you, well, maybe two of you, will be able to guess what this is in advance. This is my very favourite film of all time. It's one of the oldest films on the list. It is not in any way what you would expect. It is Dougal and the Blue Cat, the magic roundabout motion picture from, let me just quickly check the copyright date on here. It doesn't tell you, probably about 1969. It's the shortest film on the list. It's the only animated film on the list. It's the only musical on the list. It is also dubbed from French into British by Eric Thompson, father of Emma Thompson. This is oh God, I've just realised that the font on the back is Comic Sans. Oh man, I can't have it all, can I? But no, this is an incredible film, and it's very, very underrated. This is a film about a blue cat called Buxton, and he enters the magic roundabout village. And as it transpires, he has an agenda. He has an ulterior motive around that. He has changed who he is and what he believes in exchange for power and influence and control. This is a film about the nature of identity, about changing who you are for power, for what you think you want, and then finding out that perhaps that isn't what you want after all. It's a film about identity, it's a film about honesty, it's a film about control and power. It's a film about talking dogs going to the moon, being tempted by piles of sugar. It's a film about witchcraft and armies and wars, and it is one of the most perfect films ever made. It has some of the most wonderfully scatty, brilliant lines in it. About a train trip to Middlesbrough, for example. Having been to Middlesbrough, I cannot understand why anybody wants to go on a train there. It's got all of that stuff in it, and at the same point, it just brings an enormous amount of joy to me, because it is a film with heart and soul and joy and optimism right in the centre of it, that burns brighter than 1,000 suns. And at the same point, if you're paying attention, it's got a really fascinating, powerful message about integrity and ethics and morality. And it's a musical. And the film really doesn't like housework, which is plainly apparent, because one of the songs is about housework and how terrible housework is, but how it needs to be done. So it's all of those things. This is my favourite film of all time. I absolutely adore it. I could watch it all day, every day, and never, ever, ever get tired of it. And I bet that's quite a surprise, because some of you are like, oh, it's going to be some meaningful art film. Well, if Doodle and the Blue Cat is a meaningful art film, then so be it. I think the French title is something like the Chien Palou, the Blue Cat. And if that makes you feel better, that it's a French art film, then sure, that's fine. Go ahead. I just love it because I watched it and I was like, this is just brilliant. And I'd like to thank my partner at the time that I first watched it for introducing me to it. She said, I think you're going to like this. And my God, she was absolutely right. This is an incredible film. Please, 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 please. If you like lovely films, it's almost as good as Paddington 2. Although, of course, Paddington 2 isn't in my top 13 for reasons. Reasons being, I can only pick 10 to 13 movies. But Paddington 2 is almost as good as this. This is a wonderful film and I adore it. And that is my top 10 films of all time. So there's a shocker for you. So your very, very quick kind of run-up. So Stranger Than Fiction, number 10. Midsommar, number 9. Harvey, number 8. The Conversation, number 7. The Lobster, number 6. Number 5 is The Fountain. And of course, number 4, The Shining. Number 3, Blade Runner. Number 2, Ding Ding, The Thing. And number 1, Dougal and the Blue Cat. These are wonderful, wonderful movies. If you sat there going, there's nothing to watch, there is. Look for these movies, find them, watch them, love them. Thank you for putting up with me talking about my favourite films for 40 minutes. And I hopefully will see you again. Next time I'm going to be talking about a record or a CD, or a record and a CD. Unless something dramatic happens in the next few days, which I hope it doesn't. But in the meantime, of course, please do click the subscribe button. When I get to 1,000, I can cash in those pennies. I can't get to that until I've got 1,000 subscribers. And of course, stay beautiful, take care of yourselves and each other. I'll see you soon. Okay, bye.